Hi and welcome to RCKicks. On today's show, well, we're going to be building the reissued Wild One from Tamiya, but we're going to do something a little bit different. We've actually got a Night Customs sandrail conversion kit for it, so we're going to mod this one up. So it's going to be an interesting one, so stay tuned. Right, I laid out everything and we're all set, ready to go. First of all, we've got to turn our attentions to the parts from Shapeways and Night Customs. Now, being that they're printed by Shapeways, they have kind of got this little bit of a texture to it, like a porous material. So you've got to seal that, and I want to try and blend it in as well as I can to the actual kit parts that came with the Tamiya Wild One. So my plan is to try, I'm going to use plastic filler primer. I'm going to paint all the Night Custom parts, and then I'm just going to use normal red primer on the actual bits from Tamiya, and then we'll paint everything with a metallic paint because I want to try and lift the kit a little bit, but the main thing is to try and blend in the parts from Tamiya to the parts from Night Customs Shapeways printed. Now, after doing the unboxing video, if you haven't seen it, I'll put it up here, go check that out because you kind of jumped forward. The overall feedback from you was, oh my god, these parts are so expensive. And yes, they are very expensive if you buy them through Shapeways, especially if you're importing them into like the UK, as you will pay import on them as well, which bumps the price up even more. So what you can do, if this is something you're really interested in, is you can just purchase the files from Night Customs and then print them yourself. Or you can actually, you know, if you can find someone who's got a 3D printer or another company in the UK, then maybe you could get them printed out much cheaper through them. But this is definitely one I think it's going to end up looking pretty snazzy. Now, it's not going to flow exactly like how a normal Tamiya build goes, as there's lots of bits and pieces and you've got to kind of work it out as you go through. So hopefully if this is something that you're going to attempt to do yourself, you can watch this video and learn from my mistakes of what you kind of do it and in what way you do it. But first of all, we've got to plastic filler primer all the Shapeways parts from Night Customs. While that's drying, I'll probably build the rear gearbox, as that's a section that just bolts on. And then we've got the front section with the front suspension that bolts on as well. So we'll try and do two things at once while the paint's drying. I think that pretty much covers everything. So let's crack on and make a start. I've just filler primered the actual Night Customs parts. And I've started to paint up some of the parts for the actual chassis from Tamiya. So the idea is eventually that I will put a few more layers of filler primer on the yellowy, orangey stuff. Then eventually I will red primer, which is just standard red primer, over the whole lot so they'll all look and feel the same. And then we're going to use metallic red. Obviously seats are going to be different colour, petrol tank, engine, that kind of stuff. But the actual chassis itself will be a metallic red.
One eternity later.
Well, believe it or not, it's actually 4 days later and progress has been minimal. Why? Well, unfortunately my 7-year-old daughter caught COVID from school and the whole weekend has been basically written off due to dealing with that nightmare. But she's on the mend and things are okay. Also, on top of that, the metallic I painted on the actual sandrail, didn't like it. The metallic on the bars didn't really work very well and it just looked a bit messy, so I wasn't happy with it. So I stripped down all the work that I'd already done and repainted it again in flat red, and I'm happy to report by my red fingers that it actually looks much better. So I'm just waiting for it to dry now and then we're going to start putting it together. But I thought while I'm waiting for the paint to dry, I'll finally get round to doing the rear gearbox. So that's what we're going to do now. So there you go, after painting it for the, what's this, 8th, 9th time now, I have got it in the red that I'm happy with and it looks much better. I think the thing you've got to fight the most is to get rid of the texture of the 3D printed stuff to get it as smooth as the stuff that's supplied by Tamiya. But I put a lot of effort into really these top bars, the ones that are here, I didn't do so much on the underside as I'm going to put a metal plate on there. So it does take quite a long time to get it to this stage. While I was doing that, obviously I built up the suspension and I've got all the front ready to go. Now there's more painting to be done before I can fit the gearbox, turns out, as this box needs to go in first, so that's got to be painted black, and then this is going to be black as well, and then there's the petrol tank that goes on the top, which will be silver. That's got to be painted up before I can fit it. But now I can fit all the front suspension and probably some of the rear before I put the gearbox in and the other bits and pieces. So let's keep on going. Well, I put all the front suspension on. There was one issue using the standard front suspension in its normal form. It actually touches the arm using the uprights that come from Knight Customs, but it's an easy fix. All you got to do is remove the bottom section, I forget what this is called, the eye at the bottom, the mounting point, and swap it out for a longer one. That fixes the problem. Now, these don't look that scale, so I've actually managed to find ones that look much better. I talked to Knight Customs and I asked them what they used, so I've managed to find some and they're on order and they will come over. One big thing about doing stuff like this versus just getting a kit and building it is as you're going through it, you find things that don't work as they should, or you think, oh, I need to find something, and then you have to go off and hunt for it, wait for it to come. So this is a much slower process, but also you can take the detail level further and further and further as you go by finding new bits and pieces or making parts. So it is a much more time consuming kind of thing, but it's cool when you do it, as you end up with something that people just don't have. Apart from that, the front suspension went on fine. I have the servo to go in. That's a little servo that's a digital servo, and it's a 1181MG digital servo, usually that's used from a plane, so it's super small to go in the front, so I've got to fit that in a minute. Now the receiver, I've actually got a tiny little receiver. I've been using these for a while, they're really handy, and this is a Radio Link, I can't even see it, R4FGM. Perfect for this build because it's super small, but the electronic speed controller and the battery are going to be a challenge, so I've got some links to ones that do fit in here. The gearbox went in no problem at all, and one thing I'm super happy about is everything lines up really well. There's no kind of bending to make it work. The tyres, the wheels and tyres, luckily I had some grasshopper wheels and tyres because the ones that come with the Wild One are very overscale. So these fit on, and the adapters are actually in the kit already. Oops. They're in the kit already, so you can just bolt them on. I will try and find some metal ones, a bit like what I've got on my Sand Scorcher, as they look well cool, but they're actually quite difficult to get hold of, and they can be a bit expensive. So what's next? Fit the electronics as much as I can, and then paint up the box, because that's got to be fitted. So I'm going to paint that black. Then I've got to paint this silver, and the top of the box black, probably with silver on these bits. This has to be painted silver, that's the engine part, and also the pedals. Still need to get a metal rod to go through the middle and a steering wheel. Now I also have a driver set somewhere that's perfect for this, but God knows where it is. I've had a quick look, can't find it, so off camera I'll keep hunting for it. Now I'm tempted to send the driver off to be professionally painted. As you see so much of this, that would really raise the level of the detail, so that might be something. I do have a contact who's painted some stuff for me before, who is bonkersly amazing, who did my Porsche 959 drivers as well as my Striker driver, so I might get him to do the whole person, as you just see everything about them. But I want to make sure it all fits first, but I've got to find it. So let's carry on.
2 hours later.
Well, like most things with this project, it took longer than I thought. The front steering turned into a bit of a mission because I tried to use the original rods and it wasn't going to work. The challenge is that you only get a small area to actually have the rod going out, and the problem was it's super low in the chassis, so having the best servo horn, I used the one from the kit, but it almost touches the floor, so that is a bit of a challenge. So I'm going to see if I can get a better servo horn that's going to have a flat bottom with just a sticky up bit at the top. Also, I need a servo horn that goes straight up but has two side-by-side connectors. The problem was that the reach is obviously different as well because the servo is on the other side. On the normal kit, the servo is on this side of the wheels. In this chassis, it's on the other side. So I went through my parts bin and I found all the bits and pieces and I made it work with some adjustable tie rods. So the steering now fully works, but because of the geometry and the way it's lined up, when I press down on the front, the wheels are pitching in a little bit. So I need to get the steering rods to be more straight. So I've got to play around with those a bit more off camera. So believe it or not, that took quite a while because the ball joints aren't the same. The ball joints on the Wild One are much smaller. So I had to drill them out and drill out the servo saver as well to make it work. Then I turned my attentions to doing the box. I'm giving it a base coat at the moment, so I've got to go back and weather it a little bit. But I'm really happy with it, it's fine. The only reason I haven't fitted it is to squeeze it in. I need the paint to be really, really dry, and at the moment it's a little bit soft, so I don't want to scratch it with my fingernails. So I'll wait until tomorrow and then I'll fit that. It's not that difficult to do. As for the engine, I painted it black, then I just blew it over with the silver, and now I've got to go back in and put a lot of detail. One thing that I found when I did my engine on the Sand Scorcher was I used a little bit of foam and I wrapped it around the air intakes, and that worked really well, so I'm going to do that again. Also, I'm going to take off that little side plate. I'm going to paint that as well to paint it silver to kind of blend it in with the car. I think if you had a Blockhead Motors gearbox, I think it would look better because obviously that's silver already. So I'm guessing I can paint this one, but maybe I'll keep an eye out and see if I can get hold of a silver one for it, just so it all kind of all blends in a bit more. Did the pedals, they're again in their basic form. I'll just keep adding more and more detail. And I did find a battery that's going to work, so that's good. It came out of one of my airplanes, and that is perfect to fit in the seats. So super chuffed, saved me having to buy another one. I think these are about £25. This is a 7.4 volt 2S 1300 milliamp, which will be fine for this. I need to get brown to do the seats. I like this colour, this beige, this sort of light brown colour, but I want to kind of put a slightly darker brown on it as well, so I've got to do that. Then I need to find some seat belts. Material. I've seen you can get aftermarket seat belts online, so I might get one of those and be able to cut that up and use it, but I still can't find the figure, so I'll have to do that off camera. So all in all, we're getting there, but these kind of projects do take quite a while. So if you haven't already, hit that bell notification, because once I've got a few more bits and pieces, I can then finish it up. But there's lots more to come on this one, so thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye bye.